go for launch.
5.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting. Anything can happen in the next half hour.
4.
My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer.
This whole thing is insane.
3.
Quiet, please. I am analyzing.
Where's the kaboom?
2.
There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
1.
I don't think you can underestimate the contribution Ridley Scott made, because it was a script that was a sort of 10 Little Indian script where one person in the crew after another is knocked off. But I think the way it was shot, there were a lot of very innovative techniques that that he came up with operating the camera as he did, and just the whole atmosphere, the claustrophobia of it, the reality of the sets, the reality of the people. And there was an innocence in us. You know, we couldn't imagine that the people who hired us would, you know, put us in danger like that. And I think that that's what the audience really related to, that big business could actually value this killing machine more than they did our lives. So I think politically and emotionally and certainly visually, he absolutely grabbed us. The water, all these things he introduced to the feeling of menace. Those huge sets, which were like opera sets, our little tiny figures moving around in these, all the chains and the swinging of things and the, you know, and then contrasted with little touches like that little bobbing bird at the beginning, you know, just all these little sort of familial touches of magazines and food and, you know, the sort of detritus of daily life in space. I think it was a brilliant vision.
It's an original. It's like Frankenstein or Dracula, Wolfman. It's just nothing seemed like it before or after.
Somewhere in the middle, I remember having a conversation with Yaphet, and I said, "We're doing a classic, you know." And he says, "Yeah, we sure are."
1984, is that when he was made?
35 years, it was 79. 1979, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Just tell me one thing, Burke. You're going out there to destroy them, right? Not to study, not to bring back, but to wipe them out.
That's the plan.
All right, people, on the ready line. Are you me? Yeah! Are you me? Yeah! Are you? Get on the ready line, Marine! Get something to die! Get on the ready line!
Get your light up here.
Keep back, don't scare her.
Movement! Talk to me, Hudson!
I got signals. I got readings in front and behind.
There's nothing back here.
Look, I'm telling you, there's something moving and it ain't us.
Get them out of there!
How could they cut the power, man? They're animals. There's movement all over the place. 5 meters, man. 4.
Aliens. This time, it's war.
Greetings, my fellow galactic travelers, and welcome back to Planet 8. This is your mission commander Larry speaking to you from our hidden base. Chief Engineer Bob is here by my side as always in the command center, and circling Planet 8 in our orbital spy satellite is Reconnaissance Officer Karen.
And on this episode of Planet 8, we're talking about the film Alien and its sequel, Aliens. Straight away, we'll kick it over to Chief Engineer Bob. Bob, this film Alien, tell us a little something. When did you first see Alien?
Well,
like many of these movies, I did see it in the theater when it came out back in 1979. And I vividly remember it because we saw it, I believe it was at the Belmont Theater. And I remember sitting there, and it was late in starting. Like, let's say it was supposed to start at 8 o'clock. It was like 8:10, 8:15. It hadn't started yet. People were getting restless. And this one guy I went to high school with, Phil Beach, like, ran up the aisle yelling, jumped in the air, slapped his hand on the screen, and it started. And everybody, just total coincidence, but everybody in the audience just started cheering. But that was sort of the way that we kicked off Alien. But yeah, it was, I thought it was just amazing. Because for me, you know, seeing, you know, you're coming kind of fresh off of things like Star Wars and Close Encounters. And I like my aliens mean. I like them evil. I like them bad. So when Alien came out, that was like right up my alley. That was like perfect. That's what I want to see in an alien movie, is an alien that's just like out to kill us all. So so I thought it was great. You know, I did see, you know, Bob Wilkins had previewed it on Creature Features and things. But the amazing thing back then, though, is, yeah, we just did that one episode on Jaws. And we thought it was a good thing for Steven Spielberg that the shark didn't work, because he couldn't have it in every scene. He had to, it added to the suspense of not seeing it. Well, with Alien, the alien worked, and it worked great. But by design, they didn't show it.
Right.
Yeah, and they definitely did not show it in the previews. So you really, going into it, you didn't really know what this thing looked like. Because they, you know, basically they would show the pod, and they had the tagline of "In space, no one can hear you scream." And yeah, it just looked really cool. Ooh, space and alien, cool. But yeah, but then when you went in and saw the movie, and just the face hugger and the alien and all the great H.R. Geiger designs, I was blown away. Loved it. Love at first sight in this movie.
Well, it's interesting, too, because you mentioned Jaws, and I know that the two guys who came up with the original story, Dan O'Bannon and Ron Shusett, their pitch to try to sell it was Jaws in space. So
yeah, well, I could see that.
Yeah, you know, you really don't see the alien for most of the movie. You just kind of see little glimpses, maybe the shadow or the tail. And again, it's that building of suspense and fear. So, yeah, and like you said, the ads, you know, this was pre-internet. We didn't really know what we were getting into. They had those terrific trailers, though, you know, where they were going over the planetoid or whatever it was, and you'd see parts of the letters of Alien, just parts of the letters would show up, and they had that creepy music. And then you start to see the egg, and yeah, you know, it was kind of like, what is this? What is it going to be about? And you just knew it looked interesting, right? And so you wanted to see it.
And they could kind of get away with that, too, because at the time, because of the success of Star Wars and Close Encounters, anything sci-fi people were going to go see. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, because you didn't have the competition of Netflix and Hulu and all that. You know, it's like, all right, I want to see a sci-fi movie. I got to go out in the theater and see it. You know, so, yeah, movies like that would come out, and you would just be all over them.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was a punk little kid, and I was too afraid to go see this rated R movie. I'd seen pictures, the space jockey, and like I said, the H.R. Geiger, Bob was saying, the pictures that they were putting out there of the surface of the inner chamber, and I was just, I'm out. My cousins wanted to go see it, and I'm like, nah, I'm good.
See, man, that's like right up my alley. I was like all over that.
Well, I remember watching, I think it was, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the Leonard Nimoy one in the 70s, and that scared the crap out of me.
Oh, that's a scary movie.
Oh, that holds up today. We got to do an Invasion of the Body Snatchers episode at some point.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, no, I watched that recently, and that really holds up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like
One
Bob was saying,
remakes.
he likes his aliens mean, and it just, I don't know. It was years later that I saw it, and it was on VHS. Yeah.
With the covers pulled over my head.
VHS,
Exactly.
what's that, Daddy?
Yeah.
But
and the thing is in researching this, and there have been like 150 different alien films up to this point with Winona Ryder, and
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
and it really strayed, from the original, in my humble opinion. But that first film, and again, that Space Jockey really made an impression on me, because it looked skeletal, otherworldly, yet familiar. I don't know, it was just very bizarre and offsetting in a way.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you say that really stands out, because it was just a prop piece. I mean, it never moved. It was just like a statue.
Exactly.
And another interesting thing about that is that was never like a full set. They knew it would be too expensive to build a huge set, so they built just a quarter wall, and they built that the jockey on a disc, and they could kind of move it around and put like the wall behind it, so it gave the impression of a huge circular chamber. And they could just move the actors around the jockey, move the wall behind them, so it looked like, oh, you've got this circular chamber, but really they just moved the wall wherever the actors were going to be standing, so that it gave that impression. But
right?
yeah.
CGI, so
Everything was pre-CGI. I will tell you what, I did. This is the one time that Bob was not the only person who saw the movie in the theater. I did get to go see this one in the theater.
What?
Yes. My brother,
right?
My older brother, he was going to go see it. So he took me and my friend Leanne, along with him and a couple of his friends. And we got to see this in the theater. And oh my God, it was so scary the whole time, right? Mm-hmm. And at the chest burster scene, my friend Leanne slammed her hand down on my leg. She was so scared. And I think I might have had a bruise. I don't know. But it was one of those movies where, everybody's having these like physical reactions. Again, it's a kind of like Jaws, right? Everybody's kind of screaming and freaking out in the theater and stuff. I guess nowadays maybe people would look at Alien and they might not have those reactions, because there's certainly been a lot more gorier kind of, but it wasn't really it was relied a little on gore, like with the chest burster scene and stuff, but a lot of it was just because it was scary. It was claustrophobic. They couldn't get off the ship, and what were they going to do?
They definitely had the jump scenes, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like when the face hugger jumps out and attaches to his space helmet, or like the chest burster scene, because the chest burster scene was perfect, because they're all just sitting around eating at the table and everything's good, and you think, okay, the face hugger let him go and he seems to be all right, and at the time you didn't know that the face hugger was implanting stuff.
Yeah.
And then he just started like getting sick and convulsing, and they throw him on the table, and then the thing bursts out of his chest and runs towards the camera. It's like, and they really, the actors kind of knew what was going to happen, obviously, but they didn't know everything that was going to happen.
Right.
And I guess as Veronica Cartwright was talking about, because she got the bulk of the blood split
right in the face.
Yeah. And it was just like they splattered her a couple times, and a lot of the screaming was her really screaming. She didn't expect that. And she was even saying at one point she slipped and fell.
Oh, wow.
And then got back up, and they were still filming, so she had to just keep going. But I think she, you say what you will about Sigourney Weaver, but I think Veronica Cartwright did a great job in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
They all did. Yaphet Kotto. I mean, it just such a good cast.
Well, the casting of that movie is super interesting, too, because, like, Veronica Cartwright, from what I've read, she thought she originally was auditioning for Ripley. And so when she showed up on set, she thought she was going to play Ripley. And she was kind of taken aback to find out she was not in the Ripley role. But then, she does an outstanding job, as Lambert. And like all of those characters, they brought in really good actors who were, none of them were like, superstar leading actors, but it was perfect because they were all, like you kind of knew, you might recognize them or whatever, but they were not, somebody who would take you out of the movie. They were all really good character actors and very believable in what they were doing.
True.
Well, you had Sigourney Weaver in the lead role, and that was her first movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
and she wasn't really sure she wanted to do it, and they had to kind of talk her into it, and they weren't sure, like, wow, she really hasn't done movies. Is she going to be able to handle it? But sometimes people just have a feeling about someone, and they're right. So it just all came together perfectly. With the casting on this.
Yeah, and speaking of like Yaphet Kotto, I mean, I knew him going into this. I knew him from Live and Let Die. Because he played Kananga in Live and Let Die. And just seeing him in this movie, I mean, I loved him in Alien. I mean, he did a great job, I thought, as Parker. And he's always wanting, let's talk about credits. Let's talk about,
let's talk about the bonus situation. We need to talk. He brings a certain antagonism to everything,
Or there's even that one scene where Ripley's like yelling at him and his assistant, and they're down in the bowels of the ship, and while she's yelling, there's all this steam kind of drowning her out and everything, and as soon as she like storms off, he just reaches up and flips the switch and turns the steam off. And it's like, that's great.
Yeah, you get the feeling like these are not like if you're really used to like the officers on the Enterprise who are so clean cut and by the book and, proper. And then you see this crew on the Nostromo and it's like, these guys are sort of very ragtag, not at all what you expect if you've been watching science fiction movies for years and years, Well,
I mean, they were supposed to be like truckers in space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just a bunch of truckers that are just in a convoy moving stuff from place to place.
Right. I kind of made a comparison at that point of 2001. The way that the ship looked wasn't clean and pristine, and it was used and it was cramped, and it was a functioning ship that all these buttons and valves and things were part of this mechanism for them to do their job. The only correlation I guess I had with 2001 was Hal and what was the synthetic bishop?
Mother,
yeah.
The computer.
So that was kind of interesting, but I thought you get good actors and you put them in a good environment and movie magic happens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting that sort of the evolution of the film, Dan O'Bannon is the guy who had the original idea. He had come out of, I think, USC along with John Carpenter. A lot of filmmakers coming out of USC, and he put together that film Dark Star. I'm sure you guys have seen it. Oh, yeah. It was a very low budget movie, and they at one point it was like a comedy. They had an alien in there that was basically like a beach ball. And one of his things was, I want to make a sci-fi movie with a real alien, a real, menacing alien. So that was sort of where they were coming from with this. And of course, then, when they bring it to the studio. Then other people get involved. I know there was maybe a little bad blood, I think, between him and then, and I'm going to butcher the guy's name, David Giller, who was one of the producers, and Walter Hill. Those guys went in and did some rewrites, and some of the stuff they did included, making Ash an android. They renamed all the characters. That's when they came up with the idea of making Ripley a woman and having her survive. And so, there was a lot of different hands on the product. And of course, O'Bannon was saying some of his influences were some of the old 50s sci-fi. I mean, obviously The Thing from Another World, the claustrophobic thing of being trapped with an alien and stuff.
Well, there was a big influence from Terror from Beyond Space.
Yeah, that's another one. It's funny because O'Bannon was never quoted mentioning that, but having seen it, Terror from Beyond Space, it seems like it should be a reference because you've got the monster on the spaceship and they're having to find out, he's in air ducts and stuff, just like in Alien. So maybe he saw it and forgot about it, or maybe he just never mentioned it. But it definitely seems like it should be a reference point.
Well, that's another excellent jump scene too, is when Dallas is up in the air duct.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all, it's coming for you, it's coming for you, it's going to be right there. And he's looking around, he can't see it, and he's turns around, and there it is, jumps at the camera,
Yeah.
And, I think that was probably the biggest jump for me in the theater.
Yeah, me too. I think when I saw that, you're not ready for it.
That's when you get a really good look at the alien just for a second, where it kind of jumps around and its jaws are sitting there and they're shiny and everything. You can really see its face. That's a really good one.
Well, it's just such an amazing creation because you've got the mouth opens and then there's the inner mouth that extends out. And while he's doing all that, you've got the saliva and everything else in there. And
oh, I know.
Yeah, it's just...
Well, it's got to be one of the most amazing, unique creature designs. I mean, Giger had all this stuff he had drawn for his Necronomicon. And, I mean, you even see, the Emerson, Lake and Palmer... now I can't remember which album cover it was. But, they used some of those drawings on one of their album covers. And so he had all this crazy, weird... it's like sex and death imagery. I mean, obviously the alien has a lot of sexual imagery going into the ship. There's a lot of sexual imagery everywhere. It's kind of, I guess it plays on primal fears that humankind has, more so than any of the other creature designs. You can look at a lot of great creature designs. I got my sideshow statue of the creature from the Black Lagoon sitting across from me here. And I was like, that is a great creature design, but there's nothing about that says sex and death to me or anything like that. When you look at the alien, I mean, it creeps you out on a whole nother level. It's just primal.
Yeah.
And that's what's so disturbing. And to read things like, oh, yeah, we used part of a human skull in the mask. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
It's disturbing. So many different animal parts were used in putting together the egg or the face hugger. They used chicken livers and stuff. It's just,
well, I mean,
it's creepy and weird.
The alien himself, I mean, he has no eyes.
Yeah.
So you don't know where he's looking. You don't know where he's focusing. It's he's just there coming for you.
The way that they put that thing together, right? The head, the fingers, what it had 6 fingers, and
yeah,
it was. I mean, up to that point, right? You see the creature from the Black Lagoon, and it's okay, well, it kind of has a human form, and in the third film, he kind of became human. But anyway, that's another discussion to be had. I remember going to Toys R Us and seeing that thing in a package.
The Kenner.
Yeah, the Kenner alien. I had that. I sold it long
next
ago.
Next to G.I. Joe. Did you really, Bob?
Yeah, yeah.
I ended up getting one years later at a toy show, the one in San Jose, and it didn't have the glass cover or plastic cover.
Well, plus it had a little trigger in the back of the head. that you could squeeze, and it made the mouth open and the inner mouth pop out.
Yeah, instead of flame coming out like the Godzilla Shogun Warrior, his mandible shot out. And
that was a really cool toy. I'm sorry I sold it, but no, I just, looking at the design and looking at all the detail, it just amazes me still that it was a guy in a suit.
Oh yeah.
Oh right,
Yeah.
right.
6'10", super skinny. I wrote the guy's name down. I'm going to butcher it. Balaji Badejo. He was a student who was over in London and and now I don't remember which country in Africa, but what an amazing guy. And they said he studied like Tai Chi to try to get the movements of the alien. But it just goes to show you what you can do with practical effects, right?
Right.
Oh yeah, and plus, I mean, just there is that one scene where he walks across the camera, and it's just very slow and very deliberate, and very, and it's it's real creepy.
But it's like, if you know what you're doing when you're filming stuff, and I think even when we move over to talking about aliens, because again, it's all in-camera practical stuff. Knowing how to shoot things, how to frame things, if you're using wires, how to make those look invisible. Because like with the tail, they had to use wires on the tail and stuff. They're not going back in and, erasing the wire with CGI or whatever.
Well,
it's all being a master filmmaker.
You have to shoot it and get it right, and you can't fix it. And if it's something where something gets damaged or whatever, you blow that shot and you've got to like build everything back up again and set everything back up, and that's the beauty of practical effects.
Well, I thought the film ended well too. I mean, she's the sole survivor. How many people were on the crew actually? It was like
there were seven.
Seven. And
the
7
cat.
stranded castaways.
That's right.
They were on a 3-hour tour.
And the cat. And
Ginger survived.
Yeah. and you're thinking, well, that's that. What a great movie. And then, like, what, 10 years later? 79 and Aliens came out in
86.
86.
Yeah.
And James Cameron comes in and says, well, I want to do something with this, franchise. And he comes out with a completely different tone and film, and worked equally well as the first one, I think.
Well, those two movies were like yin and yang. It was like, you had the Ridley Scott, mysterious, where is it, whodunit type sci-fi film, and then you've got the James Cameron all-out action thriller, Space Marines.
And it's funny too because it was really hard to get a sequel made. Things were changing hands at Fox right after Alien was made, and then the production company that made Alien, or part of the production, Brandywine, there was some kind of issue with Fox, and I don't want to get into all the details, and I don't even know all the details, but part of what I've heard and read is that Fox was sort of hiding the profits from Alien, and they kept saying, "Oh no, it wasn't profitable. We're not going to make a sequel."
Oh,
because they didn't want to
that.
share the money with anybody, and so they kept saying, "No, we're not going to make a sequel. We're not going to make a sequel." And then finally, I guess around 83 or so, okay, we will make a sequel. Nowadays you're just like, oh yeah, immediately, like, oh yeah, we'll turn around and make a sequel. So it took like that long, and Cameron was in the process of making Terminator when he wrote like this 90-page script, and it wasn't even finished for Aliens. He was, this huge thing, and he still hadn't even finished it, and they were like, well, okay, if Terminator does well, then you can make Aliens. So he was still pretty untested when he went in to make Aliens.
Yeah. Well, and thankfully Terminator did boffo at the box office.
Yeah. But yeah,
And
completely.
Sorry, go ahead, Karen.
Oh, a completely different concept. He wanted to go in a really different direction than the first one, not remake the first one.
Which I think was very smart. And I also think, in my humble opinion, of all the sequels, 2 complements 1 the most and made the most sense. After that, to me, they started going in these bizarre directions and not knowing if they wanted to be more action than horror or more horror than action or an amalgamation of the two. It never worked for me after the second film.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think it was smart of them to bring Sigourney Weaver's character back, though, and the way that they reintroduced her into that universe, I think, was very smart.
Well, yeah, that, and then, she obviously, because of Ash, she had the distrust of androids.
Right.
And here, Bishop is on this mission. And she actually, comes to really care for Bishop at the end. So there's that kind of whole arc between them as well. Then you throw Newt in there.
Well, that was one of the disappointing things in the third film is they, everyone who survived the first one other than Ripley. But the whole concept that, in Star Trek, we don't use currency anymore. We've gotten past war. We're an enlightened culture and species. But, in the world of aliens, there's still corporations and there's still greed and there's still... that was just so good. It worked so well and it still holds up today. Don't trust the corporations.
Well, it's kind of the same can kind of be said about Terminator. And then, even RoboCop that came later, they all had the greedy corporations. But also, in Aliens, you find out that Ripley had a daughter.
In the extended version.
She was in suspended animation for 57 years between Alien and Aliens. And her daughter was 66 and had passed away.
Right.
But
yeah, I thought that was kind of an odd choice. I thought the character, it was a little different from the character we had seen in Alien. Mm-hmm. To me, I think they were trying to, they wanted to have this sort of mother versus mother thing with the alien queen.
Well, what was Ripley in the first movie? What was her position on the crew?
She was the warrant officer. She was the third officer.
Right.
I don't know. Because
they didn't really explain how she joined the crew or whatever, why she was there, But,
yeah, she didn't seem particularly maternal in any way.
Exactly.
I don't know. It just seemed a little odd as a choice, but ultimately Aliens worked as a movie. It just, I don't know that I felt like the character in Aliens and the character in Alien seemed exactly like the same character, but it worked out okay.
Well, I think the extended cut, they do that just, for fandom to get a little more screen time of the characters, and sometimes those scenes were not included in the final film for good reason. I think the relationship that Ripley builds with Newt would have been the relationship Ripley builds with Newt, whether Ripley had a daughter who had passed or not.
Sure.
Yeah, sort of as two survivors, I think.
Right.
You could see that happening, yeah.
And not that everybody has a paternal instinct, but, if you were in that situation, you see this little kid, scared, you're going to be like, hey, kid, you're not going to be like, well, screw you, it was survival of the fittest.
Well, if you were Paul Reiser's character, you might have.
Oh, yeah, some people would.
He was so awful. It was you couldn't wait for him to get killed. That guy.
He's a great actor because, What was that show he did with Helen Hunt?
Yeah, I was trying to remember the name of it. I never watched it. But
And I never watched it either, but they were so endeared to their fans. And this,
Mad About You, isn't it?
There you go.
He plays such a creep.
Yeah. Oh, so slimy. So slimy. Yeah. Such
Well, that's the thing.
horrible
Yeah,
guy.
you got to have some creepy, slimy guy in a movie because then you root for him to get killed, and it's like you want like the hero to punch him out, or you want the alien to spear him or whatever. But
Right.
that's just like
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
I was gonna, it's just like James Grodin in the '76 Kong. It's like you're just waiting for Kong to just stomp on him.
Flatten him. Well, they
The
had
other-
another good cast in this one too, right? I mean,
I was going to say, right. And the Marines, I thought the Space Marines were brilliant. And some of the actors that they brought in there worked so well.
mhm.
Yeah.
Bill Paxton.
Classic.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, like you mentioned, Bishop. So you had Lance Henriksen, you had Michael Biehn, and Michael Biehn came in last minute.
He came in last minute, right?
He was not the original. James Remar was the original actor who was going to play Hicks, and then there was some problems. So out the door he goes, and then Michael Biehn comes. Yeah, out the airlock, and then Michael Biehn comes in like a week into filming, but he was perfect. I mean, he was,
Yeah, right. Amazing.
Yeah. And, of course, you've got the classic "Game over, man! Game over."
There were a lot of good little catchphrases out of that. What are you gonna do? Put her in charge? And
yeah.
So I mean, yeah, Bill Paxton. I think that movie made him. I mean, that was his biggest movie up to that point. He had a bit role in Terminator.
I would argue Weird Science, actually. No, just kidding.
But no,
yeah.
I mean, that's great. And just the character, he's just whining and panicking and crying the whole time, and it's fine.
The
Shut
thing
up.
I had, though, and I love him as an actor, but he wasn't really badass like the rest of the Marines. He was kind of like, the loose cannon, the weakest link almost. I mean, maybe he knew his, whatever his assignment was, he had knowledge of that particular field, but man,
how did you ever become a Marine?
Well, I don't know. I can't remember if because I watched the extended cut. I don't remember if it was in the theatrical, but when they're in the drop ship going down, he's like walking around in front of Ripley going, "We are badasses. We're going to take care of you. We got a plasma gun. We got this. We got that. And blah, blah, blah. We're going to kick ass." And then, of course, he falls apart on the planet.
That was the extended cut.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if that was in the theatrical cut or not. But he serves his role in the movie. And when he does die, I mean, he's standing there holding his ground, like, you want some of this, you want some of that. So he goes out heroically.
Well, you got to figure too. I mean, they're all tough Marines, but they probably haven't faced a situation like this before.
Right.
They're just like, oh, another bug hunt. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, Cameron said that he wanted to kind of reflect Vietnam a little bit in the movie, in the sense that, maybe America went into that a little overconfident, thinking that, these people are technologically inferior. We can just go in and roll over them. And, and you think about it, 86 is a lot closer to Vietnam. I mean, today we look back and like, what is he talking about? But that wasn't that long after, it was a decade after Vietnam, basically.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, had they let the Marines keep their ammo packs, would they have gotten their asses kicked as badly as they did by the aliens? And I understand the concern with the reactor, but, well, I guess if that happened, the movie would have ended at that point, so never mind.
Well, I mean, they were doing pretty good blowing them away, but then they had to resort to what? The flamethrowers, right?
Right, yeah. Flamethrowers only. And, their commander was kind of like green, inexperienced and stuff. I think that probably led to the catastrophe.
It certainly didn't help.
Yeah.
Well, it's nothing worse than being commanded by someone who just has no business commanding, basically.
All right. And at that point, the Ripley that we saw at the end of the Alien movie comes back to us and jumps in the driver's seat of that tank car thing and just, screw it. We're getting them out, and gain the respect of the remaining Marines.
Right. She was shown as very capable, which, again, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but I mean, seeing a woman who was like the protagonist of the movie, like an alien, and who didn't need to be like rescued. Like nobody showed up and rescued Ripley at the end of Alien. She basically rescued herself. So that was kind of groundbreaking at that point in time. And then in this, she manages to like kind of save the day for the Marines. Like you said, Larry, she goes in and crashes their ATV or what, I don't know what that thing is, a tank in there, and the survivors get in and they take off.
Well, there was a scene earlier before they dropped to the planet where she wanted to help out and gotten one of those, whatever the device is, the exoskeleton to help.
Cargo loader.
Right, and impressed, the Marine sergeant. He's like, "Oh, where would you like me to put it? Over there, please." So the whole concept of, we're going to protect Ripley switched, and it's like, well, this woman who survived the first attack, the first contact with this alien, might very well help us survive, now a planet of who knows how many aliens.
Mm-hmm. That was kind of weird at the beginning, because I know maybe they didn't introduce her well to the Marines, but yeah, I mean, she was the sole survivor of the last one. She made it through. She defeated the alien and all that, and but they have like no respect for her whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even her position. I don't know if they even told them what her position was, prior to that.
I don't think they did. I think there was a veil of secrecy from the quote-unquote corporation.
The company. The evil company.
But yeah, I mean, like I say, they had, because they were just looking at her like, what's she doing here? What does she know?
Mm-hmm.
She's not a Marine. She's not a fighter. But
yeah. And it's like, I heard she saw an alien once. They were like making fun of her and stuff.
Right.
Again, overconfident about what they could do. They got all this equipment and all these guns and everything, and they just don't know what they're up against.
Exactly. Let me ask you guys this. How did you feel with the reveal of the alien queen, that there was actually this different looking, different functioning alien that we'd never seen before?
Just sitting there popping out eggs.
Basically, it's like a little bakery.
Popping eggs down the chute. But yeah, I don't know. I think
revolting for me. I mean, it was very graphic, very visceral. I won't say uncomfortable like Videodrome, but it was just this weird, which I didn't feel in the first Alien film. It's like you saw the alien, and you're like, oh wow, that's cool. This one is like, wow, that's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. And then when she unhooks herself and goes on the rampage, it was like, holy, crap.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I love the slick design of the alien. So Queen Alien, she had the big crest on the back of the head and everything. And so
right.
Maybe going a little too far.
I thought it was an interesting thing to look at, and the sheer size was impressive. Like you said, when she kind of pops off and then just starts skittering down the hallways and stuff. It was pretty creepy. But yeah, there was always that, and Larry knows because we've seen so many movies together, I kind of overthink everything. So I was trying to figure out like the life cycle of all the, because I kind of had gotten the impression like maybe the people kind of turned into the eggs, or maybe I'd read that somewhere. And so I was like, well, wait a minute, where are the eggs coming from? And then, so figuring out the whole life cycle of the aliens was a little confusing for me, because if she's a queen, sort of like you think of like insect hives, well, then it's like, is somebody mating with her? And how many different types of aliens are there? They're
aliens. You're overthinking it.
Yeah, but see, then you've got like Aliens 3, where the face hugger impregnates a dog. So the aliens like run around on all fours the whole movie, and it's like took on the sort of the characteristics of a dog.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends on where the aliens come from, I guess, or
yeah.
They really did try to sell that, because I will say I didn't. Well, I did see 3. I didn't really like it too much, but Kenner put out smaller, like G.I. Joe size action figures, and they had like a bull alien and like a
all these different animal aliens and stuff.
And I'm like, they weren't in the movie. What are you guys doing here?
Kind of like what they did with Venom.
Yeah, basically, right.
The xenomorph. Yes.
Xenomorph.
Let me ask you guys, any last thoughts? Any last comments? Anything we missed between Alien and Aliens?
Yes, and I'm surprised you didn't bring this up, Larry, because you usually talk about the soundtracks, and you had Jerry Goldsmith on Alien and James Horner on Aliens. So thoughts about the music?
That's a very good point, Walker and Karen. Very similar composers, the types of music scores that they've done for films, 2 different films, and the music, although suspenseful, I'd made a comment earlier or offline about Star Trek II. There's a beat in Star Trek II when Spock's going down to redo the main reactor, and just the trumpets and stuff. James Horner did the Alien soundtrack too, and there's a lot of like bum ba da bum 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 bum. It just works. The film Alien, it was a more subtle to me music, and it was a suspenseful, scary movie. So
yeah.
We did talk about that offline, and I thought it was perfect because Goldsmith kind of has that sense of wonder type music, which fit the first film, and then Horner is more for action and that, which fits the second one. But when you mentioned about Horner kind of recycling himself, I did contact John DeCentis, who's sort of a soundtrack guru and kind of my go-to on these things. And he says, yes, your ears did not deceive you. Horner recycled himself quite a bit, especially the danger motif, which was used not only for Ripley's rescue, but for Khan's surprise attack and the Klingon theme in Star Trek III. He says, also compare the Genesis countdown from Khan to Bishop's countdown in Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was...
Yeah.
And,
very cool.
We were talking about, everybody kind of, they all have their styles. They all kind of recycle each other. Even like John Williams and others, you have recurring themes in different movies that sound similar to themes in other films. I think Larry was saying something about Jasmine and the Superman theme, or...
Right, Superman and Star Wars. She's like, it's the same. I'm like, no, it's not. Stop saying that. And then she made a good point. She's like, well, with Close Encounters, it's bum, 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 bum. I said, yeah, but with Jaws, it's bum, 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 bum. But anyway.
Well, it's like the music when Bishop has, picked up Ripley and Newt, and they're taking off from the planet before it's going to explode, and it's that dun 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 dun. They used that in so many trailers for years after that. You would hear that same music over and over, and so they got a lot of mileage out of it. I mean, it was used everywhere. But yeah, after you talked about that, Larry, I had to go back and kind of pull up my Star Trek 2 and listen to a couple of cuts, and I was like, damned if that isn't the same thing. I was just like, wow. And then once you really listen to it, you can't get it out of your head.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's like not exactly the same. Like they'll reorchestrate it, make some slight differences and slight adjustments, and because it's funny because like I'll listen to Godzilla soundtracks, and Akira Ifukube, he recycles like crazy, but the way it's orchestrated or the tempo or whatever, I can usually tell, oh no, that's from this movie or that's from this movie, that movie, you know. But yeah, I think Horner's kind of the same way. I don't think he just like takes his music and sticks it in the other film. He writes it into that and records it for that film. It may be slower, maybe faster, it may be, you know, slightly different beat or something, but I don't know, maybe a trained ear who's a Horner fan can tell you, oh no, that's the one he used in Khan and that's the one he used in Aliens because of this difference, you know.
I'm sure they're out there.
Well, they just have things they like to use, instruments they prefer, and things like that. And you just wind up noticing it.
Yeah, because like Horner's, he has like a lot of like bangs and clangs and everything in his music. That just, you know,
a lot of percussion.
You hear it, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's James Horner. Yeah,
it's good stuff all the way around.
But
how about you, Bob?
like I said, I think those two movies complement each other perfectly, and they should have maybe just stopped at that.
Well,
yeah,
you know, I'd agree. There's always good because I forgot about the dog scene. The dog scene in 3 was interesting and was pretty cool and scary. I don't know. We'll see where, you know, and we've talked about this before, but it's too bad that Hollywood doesn't come out with more original ideas, you know, like Close Encounters or like Alien. I mean, even though Aliens was a sequel to the first film, I think it's, you know, almost a complete, you can watch Aliens by itself and not have seen the first film. It's just that well made.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, they just there was something on Facebook I saw this week saying that they were going to do yet another Aliens movie.
Mm-hmm. It's like that cow has no more milk. I don't care how much you squeeze the udder. There's nothing else coming out. And if something comes out, it's not milk.
It's done.
It's done. She's done. She's got no more. But yeah, it's like the two films together work perfectly because Aliens is a logical extension of Alien, and you're not stretching the story. You're not having to twist and contort yourself to tell another story. It makes a lot of sense. And it's sort of like with Terminator and Terminator 2. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. He's come back to do this, that, and the other. And that's when those stories work. And when you have to stretch the plot too much, stretch details too much, that's when I think it, you know, you start finding all these defects in the film. And yeah, I think, you know, the third one, a lot of people disliked it because it did go a little too far. And the killing off Newt and Hicks, you know, these were characters we had come to love. And all of a sudden they're like, no, they're dead. Yeah. Ripley's, I forget, was she had an alien inside of her, right? Yeah. I mean, there was just, they took all the goodwill from the aliens and trashed it. So
well, her alien took almost the whole movie to gestate. I mean, most of the other ones went pretty quick, but, you know, she had that thing in her, and, yeah, it didn't burst out till, like, the end of the movie when she's doing the swan dive into the flames, but...
Mm-hmm.
But then there's, like, Prometheus, and I think they forgot it was an alien movie until almost the end, and they're like, oh, shit, we better throw some aliens in there.
Yeah.
You know, I talked to somebody recently who had seen Prometheus, but they didn't know it was part of the whole alien thing. And yeah, they said, oh, I didn't realize it was an alien movie right till the end.
Yeah.
So you're spot on with that. The thing that's frustrating to me is they can't make a good Alien versus Predator movie. It's like, come on, you've got two great characters that could be great opponents for each other. And yet...
Well, actually, Karen, they did. Batman was involved in it.
Well, Batman Dead End is an awesome little film. I love that suit. Something came up on Twitter just yesterday about what's the best Batman suit, and I said Batman Dead End.
Yeah. I agree. It was a great Batman too. I mean, just when he suited up and all those bruises and cuts, and
But for those who don't know what we're talking about, it was like a fan-made film, right? And it's called Batman Dead End. You can look it up. I think it's on YouTube. And it's just a real short film where Batman's going up against the Joker, and then suddenly Alien appears, Predator appears, and Batman's got to fight him, and it's awesome. It's maybe 10 minutes long?
Yeah.
If that.
The guy who made it was named Sandy Kalura, and he's in the effects business. But, everything in that was pitch perfect. It just looked fantastic. Nah, I'd love to see a full-length
I would too. It's too bad.
version of that. I'd pay good money for that.
Well, actually, Fox was bought by Disney, right? So that takes it further away from DC. So you'd have to have, like, Alien versus Predator with... maybe Iron Man thrown in? Spider-Man, whatever.
One never knows. Well, look, guys, we've come to that point in the podcast where it's censor sweep time. And this podcast, our reconnaissance officer, Karen, has come into some intel that she's going to share with us. Karen, take it away.
Indeed, I do. And it's based on our topic of the day, a very massive tome, which I picked up just recently by J.W. Rinsler, called The Making of Alien. This is a book by Titan Press, over 300 pages, chock full of photographs and stories and things about the making of just the first movie. But if you're a fan of Alien, you should definitely get it. You can get it on Amazon and other fine purveyors of books. So if you like what we talk about today, look for The Making of Alien.
Well, and I will say, you guys can't see it, but it's not wee. It's not very wee. It's freaking huge.
It's freaking huge. It's a big book.
I was telling Karen before we started recording, that's a coffee table book that belongs on a coffee table when you're going to read it.
Well, that's a coffee table book that you could actually make a coffee table out of.
That's true.
Slap some legs on that thing and you're ready to go.
Very true. Well, look, guys, it's been real. Make sure you subscribe and like and comment and stay safe.
On that note, this will conclude this transmission from Planet 8. We would like to thank all of our intergalactic audience for listening. Be sure to head on over to our website at www.planet8podcast.com, where you can get more information on this episode's topic.
For more conversation, find us on Twitter at Planet8Cast.
Or on Facebook at facebook.com/Planet8Podcast.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in each and every episode. We look forward to your input and opinions. Until next time, this is Planet 8 signing off. End transmission.
By George, he's got it. It is the end.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.